Welcome back. This time we're having a spoiler-filled look at Jason Bourne, the fourth film in the Bourne franchise. So if you've seen my spoiler-free review for Jason Bourne, and if you haven't, I've provided a link below, go watch that. Most, if not all, of my problems with this movie were story-based. And obviously, since I don't provide spoilers in my reviews, it was really hard to talk about specifics. So this is why I'm doing a separate video where I'm pretty much just going to kind of rant about all the problems I had with the script of this movie. So consider that your warning that if you have not seen Jason Bourne and don't want to be spoiled, stop watching now. Go watch my spoiler-free review and then decide, based on that, whether you want to go see Jason Bourne. So in my spoiler-free review, I kind of summed up my problems with this movie by stating that every time I was thinking about how I didn't want the story to go in a particular direction, it always seemed to go there. Combined with that, there's way too many storylines, confusing, if not nonsensical character motivations, way too many coincidences, and just characters making what I consider dumb decisions to benefit the plot more so than what they would actually do otherwise. And when I'm talking about my problems with the story, I have to start at the beginning and start with the fact that they killed Nikki, the character played by Stiles, who's been in this franchise since the beginning. Now, before I get any further, let me state that the fact that she died in this movie is not necessarily a bad thing. Now, I don't like the fact that she died. I did not want her to die. The trailers basically gave away the fact she was going to die. If you've watched the main trailer for this movie more than once, it's pretty obvious what was going to happen. They pretty well spoiled it in the trailer. But the fact that they killed her by itself is not necessarily something I could ding the movie for. It's something I might not like, and I don't, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a badly written movie. But what I don't like is the fact that this is the only returning character other than Bourne to make it to the fourth film. She's the only character to be in all four movies. Plays a increasingly large role in the movies, so much so that in the third one she's Bourne's ally and has to basically go on the run because now she's wanted by the CIA just like him. They also imply that there might have been some kind of relationship between Jason and her prior to him losing his memory. And they play off the parallels of her having to change her hair and everything else in the third movie to what happened with Marie in the first. So while I say they could kill her off and make it, story imperative, what the character gets in this movie is just undeserving of the character in my point of view, because they kill her off and then basically everything she was attempting to do, her dying and her mission goes nowhere. It fails, utterly fails, and is never brought up again. It serves only to give Bourne this little tidbit of information that his father was involved with Treadstone before he ever was recruited. So they basically take this character that fans, at least I'm a fan, and I liked her character, wanted to see where she was going to go next in this franchise, and they basically kill her off to send Bourne on a new mission. It's not even a mission of revenge. It's a mission of, I now have this information, thanks dead Nikki, let's move on. He gets the souped up flash drive from her, he goes to this super hacker that she was working with, he gets a little bit more information, the files are promptly deleted, and he gets into a fight with a hacker and kills him, and then off to the rest of the movie. It's almost like one of those Family Guy segues at the beginning of an episode where just like that whole part of the movie was just there to set him off on what the movie's actually going to be about, and they killed the one main character we had left. And I couldn't get around it. Now, I didn't want them to kill her off, but if they were going to kill her off, make that death have some more meaning. I mean, she's essentially just thrown away, left on the street, and we never hear about her again. So enough about that. Let's move on to my next category of issues, and that is character stupid decisions. And as I mentioned, this hacker guy, he was working with Nikki, he wants this information, Bourne brings it to him. All Bourne wants is to get the information about Treadstone and his father. So, when this guy offers him to join forces, he's like, I'm not interested. I just want to look at these files. He never indicates that he's not going to turn these files over to the hacker when he's done. Yet the hacker decides that he's going to attack Jason Bourne and win? I don't see why he thought he would actually win, and I don't see why attacking him at that moment benefits anything other than the fact that it gets that character out of the way for the plot. And that's my recurring problem with this movie, is my issues are there's so many things that happen, so many decisions that are made solely to progress the plot. It doesn't feel like these characters are making decisions that they would otherwise make. So they're no longer believable to me. And speaking of decisions that I can't understand, we have Tommy Lee Jones' character, Dewey. So he knows that Nikki has stolen these files, and they suspect, even though they have no evidence at this point, that Bourne is involved. So what does he do? He calls the one asset that he has that has an emotional connection to Bourne. He even uses Bourne's name to convince him to accept this mission, even though he's in the middle of another mission. So he knows that this asset, who never gets a name in the movie, by the way, could be emotionally compromised during this mission. So when he first engages Bourne and acts emotionally, Dewey actually says to him, "Don't let your emotions get in the way." Then why bring him on the mission? Plus, as we find out later, this is the guy who killed Bourne's father. And they know that Bourne has a lot of documents from Treadstone that he could use to potentially learn this fact. It's probably not a good idea to try to go after the one guy that you've never been able to catch with the guy that Bourne probably wants to kill if he finds this out. It just doesn't make any sense. And then I'm not sure if it's a stupid character decision, but I'm going to lump it up here, is this whole escape attempt by the asset at the end of the movie. The whole him stealing the police van and trashing his way through Vegas. It's a cool action sequence. I think it's a little over the top for the Bourne franchise. It's a little more action movie style than what we've come to expect from the Bourne franchise. But it doesn't really make sense on this whole, like, he's trying to escape, but let's make as much noise along the way. And speaking of the asset, he's a character who goes well beyond the whole CIA assassin who will do anything to accomplish his mission. He's essentially a sociopath. He kills so many innocent bystanders in this movie without blinking an eye. And I know that's what they were trying to play up with the other assets of Treadstone and Blackbriar and all of that there's these stone-cold killers. But this is also a movie in which both Dewey and Heather Lee, played by Alicia Vikander, spend a lot of time trying to convince Bourne that his missions were for the betterment of his country, that it was a patriotic duty to do these things. While they have this other guy just blowing away cops and everything else, it doesn't mesh well. And speaking of Dewey attempting to try to sway Bourne, there's the moment where he's talking to him in the hotel suite near the end. He's talking about how all of his kill missions saved American lives. It's one of the lines that they use in the trailer. And when he was saying this, I was struck by the thought that, yes, I have to imagine some of Bourne's missions were for the betterment of American security. That it wasn't all just, killing people for the sake of killing people. There were actually good missions involved. But we know that Dewey knows, that Bourne knows, that not all of his missions were good. We know that the mission in Berlin to kill the Russian guy and his wife, that was a crooked deal that had nothing to do with protecting America. So, I can understand why he's trying to make that argument, but he's very knowingly overselling his position. And jumping back to the asset, this is where we get so many coincidences. It just so happens that he has this emotional connection to Bourne. And I have to say, when they first introduced that, aside from the fact that it was odd that Dewey was bringing him in on this mission, I liked that they were going to go in that direction, that there could have been collateral damage to other assets with what Bourne did at the end of the last movie, revealing Blackbriar. I really thought that was going to go to a very interesting emotional conflict between those two, sort of like what we had at the end of the third film, when Bourne declines to shoot the other asset, and the asset later asks him, "Why didn't you do that?" It was a good emotional scene. So I thought that this film franchise has always been in grays. There's very few black and whites. So to have this character who suffered greatly because of something that Bourne did, I thought that would be a very interesting route to go. But then when we find out, again, another coincidence, that this guy was also the guy that killed Bourne's father, that's out the window, because now, we're once again 100% on Bourne's side, because, he killed his dad, and now he wants revenge too. And this whole dual revenge thing, honestly, was very uncompelling to me. And when they have the big fight at the end, where you have that real Bourne type fight that we always get in these movies, I was really just kind of like not caring at that point. I was beyond caring about this fight. I knew Bourne was going to end up killing him, and there was going to be really no emotional payoff for that. And just at that point, I'd kind of given up caring, because the story had lost me completely. And that was the proof right there that I knew. I was thinking as the movie was going on that it could salvage itself, but that was at the point where I knew that this film had lost me completely. And not to draw down too much, and as I've said in my other in-depth spoiler reviews, I don't want to come across like I'm just nitpicking things. But these, I think, are serious story problems, and the most pressing issues with this movie, when you're finished with it and look back, again, is the idea that both Dewey and Heather's motivations, which are what drive this entire movie, at the end, I have absolutely no clue what their end games were. Let's start with Dewey. So we know that he wants Bourne dead, and he's always arguing with Heather, who's at this point trying to bring him back in. And he's fighting her, always saying that's not going to happen, we just need to put him down. Which is understandable, especially in his position of trying to protect the secrets of these black ops. But after the files are destroyed, and that risk is not necessarily there, it's never really made clear why he was so adamant to kill him. I mean, obviously, there's we only get one crack at it. If we don't get him this time, we're never going to find him again. But his ability to just damage the CIA at this point is not necessarily, so high. So we get this mission in London where he pretty much takes it over. Supposedly it's Heather's mission, and he just takes it over, sends in the asset, in the process killing 4 of their own agents to try to eliminate Bourne. And at this point, Dewey goes from being a slightly overly involved administrator to just, he's wiping out his own agents. And we've seen that before in other films when they turned out to be completely crooked and they were trying to protect secrets that could take them down. This is a case where he's trying to protect the CIA and killing CIA agents along the way for no reason I can understand. That whole mission makes no sense to me from the sense of what he was trying to do other than kill Bourne. That was why the other agents had to die, why he had to take over Heather's mission. If he really thought that Bourne was never going to come in, he could have let Heather do her thing. If she gets killed along the way, why does he care? And then he can take out Bourne. We later see that he actually does try to make the play to bring him in, although that's most likely because he thought that Bourne was going to kill him unless he could convince him to rejoin the CIA. But yeah, I don't know what his end game was during this whole thing, especially when he's got a much bigger fish to fry with the Facebook analog guy trying to betray those secrets there. Which brings us to Heather Lee. They have this, they kind of keep her motivations mysterious, because there's a point where she actually says that she's against Dewey, but for a different reason. Well, we ultimately find out that her entire reason to do it was some sort of coup, that she was trying to take over his job. Looking back on it, her decisions that she makes, I don't get it. It does not make, in retrospect, a compelling storyline or a compelling character, especially since her end game was to recruit Bourne back, which we see blow up in her face when it turns out that he recorded her conversation with the NSA guy. So once again, it's just, I'm left with no compelling characters, no interesting story, because it's all a mess. So yes, that was probably way too long, but I just really wanted to rant about this, and I obviously couldn't do it without the spoilers. So like I said in my spoiler-free review, have you seen Jason Bourne? I'm hoping you have, since I just gave away the entire movie. Did you have the same problems I did, or were you just like, no, I enjoyed this movie, I thought the story was fine? I really want to know, because I just had such a bad, visceral reaction to this movie afterward. I mean, I was almost depressed, because I was really looking forward to this movie. And for me, it was an utter disappointment. As always, you can subscribe to my channel, check out some of my other reviews, And until next time, I'll see you at the movies.